Republic Act Number 9165, an act instituting the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002, repealing Republic Act Number 6425, otherwise known as the Dangerous Drug Act of 1972, as amended, providing funds therefore and for other purposes, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress. Section 1. Short title. This act shall be known and cited as the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002. It establishes offenses and penalty according to the different dangerous drug regardless of the quantity and purity involved. Section 2. Declaration of Policy. It is the policy of the state to safeguard the integrity of its territory and well-being of its citizenry, particularly the youth, from the harmful effects of the dangerous drug on their physical and mental well-being, and to defend the same against act or omission detrimental to their development and preservation. Article 2. Unlawful Acts and Penalties. Section 4. Importation of dangerous drug and or controlled precursor and essential chemicals. The penalty of life imprisonment to death and ranging 500,000 pesos to 10 million pesos shall be imposed upon any person who, unless authorized by law, shall import or bring into the Philippines any dangerous drug. Section 5. Sale, trading, administration, dispensation, delivery, distribution, transportation of any dangerous drug and or controlled precursor and essential chemicals. The penalty of life imprisonment to death and fine ranging from 500,000 pesos to 10 million pesos shall be imposed upon any person who, unless authorized by law, shall sell, trade, administer, dispense, deliver. Section 8. Manufacture of dangerous drug, uncontrolled precursor, and essential chemicals. The penalty of life imprisonment to death and fine ranging 500,000 pesos to 10 million pesos shall be imposed upon any person who, unless authorized by law, shall engage in manufacture of any dangerous drug. Section 10. Manufacture or delivery of equipment, instrument, apparatus, and other paraphernalia for dangerous drug and or controlled precursor and essential chemicals. The penalty of imprisonment ranging from 12 years and 1 day to 20 years and a fine ranging from 100,000 pesos to 500,000 pesos shall be imposed upon any person who shall deliver, possess with intent to deliver, or manufacture with intent to deliver equipment, instrument. Section 11. Possession of dangerous drugs. The penalty of life imprisonment to death and a fine ranging from 500,000 pesos to 10 million pesos shall be imposed upon any person who, unless authorized by law, shall possess any dangerous drug in the following quantities regardless of the degree of purity. Section 13. Possession of dangerous drugs during parties, social gatherings, or meetings. Any person found possessing any dangerous drug during a party or at social gathering or meeting, or in a proximate company of at least 2 persons, shall suffer the maximum penalties provided for the Section 11 of this Act, regardless of the quantity and purity of such dangerous drugs. Section 15. Use of dangerous drugs. A person apprehended or arrested who is found to be positive for use of any dangerous drug after a confirmatory test shall be imposed a penalty of maximum of 6 months rehabilitation in a government center with the first offense, subject to the provision of Article 8 of this Act. If apprehended using any dangerous drug for the second time, he or she shall suffer the penalty of imprisonment ranging from 6 years and 1 day to 12 years and fine ranging from 50,000 pesos or 200,000 pesos. Section 16. Cultivation or culture of plants classified as dangerous drugs or are sources thereof, the penalty of life, imprisonment to death, and a fine ranging from 500,000 pesos to 10 million pesos shall be imposed upon any person who shall plant, cultivate, or culture marijuana, opium poppy, or any other plant regardless of quantities. Section 19. Unlawful prescription of dangerous drugs. The penalty of life, imprisonment to death, and a fine ranging from 500,000 pesos to 10 million pesos shall be imposed upon any person who, unless authorized by law, shall make an issue or a prescription. Section 20. Confiscation and forfeiture of the proceed or instrument of the unlawful act, including the properties or proceeds derived from the illegal trafficking of dangerous drugs and or precursors and essential chemicals. Every penalty imposed for the unlawful importation, sale, trading, administration, dispensation, delivery, distribution, transportation, or manufacture of any dangerous drug and or controlled precursor and essential chemical, the cultivation or culture plants which are sources of dangerous drug. Section 21. Custody and disposition of confiscated, seized, and or surrendered dangerous drugs, plants, sources of dangerous drugs, controlled precursors and essential chemicals, instruments or paraphernalia and or laboratory equipment. The PIDEA shall take charge and have custody of all dangerous drugs, plant, sources of dangerous drugs, controlled precursors and essential chemicals, as well as instruments or paraphernalia and or laboratory equipment so confiscated, seized, and or surrendered. Section 22. Grant of compensation, reward, and award. The board shall recommend to the concerned government agency the grant of compensation, reward, and award to any person providing information and to law enforcers participating in the operation. Section 23. Plea bargaining provision. Any person charged under any provision of this act, regardless of the imposable penalty, shall not be allowed to avail of the provision on plea bargaining. Section 24. Non-applicability of the probation law for drug traffickers and pushers. Any person convicted for drug trafficking and pushing under this act, regardless of the penalty imposed by the court, cannot avail or the privilege granted by the probation law or Presidential Decree number 968 as amended. Section 26. Attempt or conspiracy. Any attempt or conspiracy to commit the following unlawful act shall be penalized by the same penalty prescribed for the commission of the same as provided under this act. Section 27. Criminal liability of a public officer or employee for misappropriation, misapplication, or failure to account for the confiscated, seized, and or surrendered dangerous drugs, plants, sources of dangerous drugs, controlled precursors and essential chemicals, instrument or paraphernalia, and or laboratory equipment, including the proceeds or properties obtained from the unlawful act committed. The penalty of life, imprisonment to death, and a fine ranging from 500,000 pesos to 10 million pesos, in addition to absolute perpetual disqualification from any public office, shall be imposed upon any officer or employee who misappropriates, misapplies, or fails to account for confiscated, seized, or surrendered dangerous drugs, plant sources or dangerous drugs, controlled precursors and essential chemicals, instrument or paraphernalia, and or laboratory equipment, including proceeds or properties obtained from unlawful acts as provided for in this act. Section 28. Criminal liability of government officials and employees. The maximum penalties of the unlawful acts provided for in this act shall be imposed, in addition to absolute perpetual disqualification from any public office if those found guilty of such unlawful acts are government officials and employees. Section 29. Criminal liability for planting of evidence. Any person who is found guilty of planting any dangerous drug and or controlled precursor and essential chemical, regardless of quantity and purity, shall suffer the penalty of death. Section 30. Criminal liability of officers of partnerships, cooperations, associations, or other juridical entities. In case any violation of this act is committed by a partnership, cooperation, association, or any juridical entity, the partner, president, director, manager, trustee, estate, administrator, or officer who consent to or knowingly tolerates such violations shall be held criminally liable as a co-principal. Section 31. Additional penalty if offender is an alien. In addition to the penalty prescribed in the unlawful act committed, any alien who violates such provision of this act shall, after service of sentence, be deported immediately without further proceedings unless the penalty is death. Article 3. Dangerous drugs, test and record requirements. Section 36. Authorized drug testing. Authorized drug testing shall be done by any government forensic laboratories or by any other drug testing laboratories accredited and monitored by the DOH to safeguard the quality of test results. Section 37. Issuance of false or fraudulent drug test results. Any person authorized, licensed, or accredited under this Act and its implementing rules to conduct drug examination or test who issues false or fraudulent drug test results knowingly, willfully, or through gross negligence shall suffer the penalty of imprisonment. Section 39. Accreditation of drug testing centers and physicians. The DOH shall be tasked to license and accredit drug testing centers in each province and city in order to assure their capacity, competence, integrity, and stability to conduct the laboratory examination and tests provided. Article 4. Participation of the family, students, teachers, and school authorities in the enforcement of this Act. Section 41. Involvement of the family being the basic unit of the Filipino society, shall be primarily responsible for the education and awareness of the members of the family on the ill effects of dangerous drugs and close monitoring of family members who may be susceptible to drug abuse. Section 42. Student councils and campus organizations. All elementary, secondary, and tertiary schools, student councils, and campus organizations shall include in their activities a program for the prevention of and deterrence in the use of dangerous drugs and referral for treatment and rehabilitation of students for drug dependence. Section 43. School curricula. Instruction on drug abuse prevention and control shall be integrated in the elementary, secondary, and tertiary curricula of all public and private schools, whether general, technical, vocational, or agro-industrial, as well as in non-formal, informal, and indigenous learning system. Section 44. Heads, supervisors, and teachers of schools. For the purpose of enforcing the provision of Article 2 of this Act, all school heads, supervisors, and teachers shall be deemed persons in authority and as such, are hereby empowered to apprehend, arrest, or cause the apprehension or arrest of any person who shall violate any of the said provisions pursuant pursuant to Section 5, Rule 113 of the Rules of Court. Article 5. Promotion of a national drug-free workplace program with the participation of private and labor sectors and Department of Labor and Employment. Section 47. Drug-free workplace. It is them a policy of a state to promote drug-free workplace, says Section 47. Drug-free workplace. Section 47. Section 47. Drug-free workplace. It is them a policy of a state to promote drug-free workplaces using a tripartite approach. With the assistance of the board, the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, shall develop, promote, and implement a national drug abuse prevention program in the workplace to be adopted by private companies with 10 or more employees. Section 48. Guidelines for the National Drug-Free Workplace Program. The board and the DOLE shall formulate the necessary guidelines for the implementation of National Drug-Free Workplace Program, the amount necessary of the implementation of which shall be included in the Annual General Appropriation Act.
Article 6. Participation of the private and labor sectors in the enforcement of this Act. Section 50. Government assistance. The labor sector and the respective partners may, in pursuit of the programs mentioned in the preceding section, secure the technical assistance such as, but not limited to, seminars and information dissemination campaigns of the appropriate government and law enforcement agencies. Article 7. Participation of local government units. Section 51. Local government units assistance. Local government units shall appropriate a substantial portion of their respective annual budgets to assist in or enhance the enforcement of this Act, giving priority to preventive or educational programs and the rehabilitation or treatment of drug dependents. Section 53. Effect of Board Declaration. If the Board declares a place or premises to be a public nuisance, it may declare an order immediately prohibiting the conduct, operation, or maintenance of any business or activity on the premises which is conducive to such nuisance. An order entered under this section shall expire after 1 year or at such earlier time as stated in the order. The Board may bring a complaint seeking a permanent injunction against any nuisance described under this section. This article does not restrict the right of any person to proceed under the Civil Code against any public nuisance. Article 8. Program for Treatment and Rehabilitation of Drug Dependents. Section 58. Filing of charges against a drug dependent who is not rehabilitated under the Voluntary Submission Program. A drug dependent who is not rehabilitated after the second commitment to the center under the Voluntary Submission Program shall, upon recommendation of the Board, be charged for violation of Section 15 of this Act and prosecuted like any other offender. Section 59. Escape and recommitment for confinement and rehabilitation under the Voluntary Submission Program. Should a drug dependent under the Voluntary Submission Program escape from center, he or she may submit himself or herself for a commitment within 1 week therefrom, or his or her parent, spouse, guardians, or relative within the 4th degree of consanguinity or affinity may, within said period, surrender him for a commitment, in which case the corresponding order shall be issued by the Board. Section 62. Compulsory submission of a drug dependent charge with an offense to treatment and rehabilitation. If a person charged with an offense where the imposable penalty is imprisonment of less than 6 years and 1 day and is found by the prosecutor or by the court at any stage of the proceedings to be a drug dependent, the prosecutor or the court, as the case may be, shall suspend all further proceedings and transmit copies of the record of the case to the board. Section 64. Confidentiality of records under the compulsory submission program. The records of a drug dependent who was rehabilitated and discharged from the center under the compulsory submission program or who was charged for violation of Section 15 of this Act shall be covered by Section 60 of this Act. Section 66. Suspension of sentence of a first-time minor offender. An accused who is over 15 years of age at the time of the commission of the offense mentioned in Section 11 of this Act, but not more than 18 years of age at the same time when judgment should have been promulgated after having been found guilty of the said offense, may be given the benefits of a suspended sentence. Section 67. Discharge after compliance with conditions of suspended sentence of a first-time minor offender. If the accused first-time minor offender under suspended sentence complies with the applicable rules and regulations of the board, including confinement in a center, the court, upon a favorable recommendation of the board for the final discharge of the accused, shall discharge the accused and dismiss all proceedings. Section 75. Treatment and Rehabilitation Centers. The existing treatment and rehabilitation centers for drug dependent operated and maintained by the NBI and the PNP shall be operated, maintained, and managed by the DOH in coordination with other concerned agencies. Article 9. Dangerous Drugs Board and Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. Section 77. The Dangerous Drugs Board. The board shall be the policy-making and strategy-formulating body in the planning and formulation of policies and programs on drug prevention control. It shall develop and adopt a comprehensive, integrated, unified, and balanced national drug abuse prevention and control strategy. It shall be under the office of the President. Section 78. Composition of the board. The board shall be composed of 17 members, wherein 3 of which are permanent members. The honor 12 members shall be in an ex officio capacity and the 2 shall be regular members. The 3 permanent members who shall possess at least 7-year training and experience in the field of dangerous drugs and in any of the following fields: in law, medicine, criminology, psychology, or social work, shall be appointed by the President of the Philippines. Section 81. Powers and Duties of the Board. The Board shall formulate, develop, and establish a comprehensive, integrated, unified, and balanced national drug use, prevention, and control strategy. Promulgate such rules and regulations as may be necessary to carry out the purposes of this Act. Conduct policy studies, program monitoring and evaluations, and other researches on drug prevention, control, and enforcement. Initiate, conduct, and support scientific, clinical, social, psychological, physical, and biological researches on dangerous drugs and dangerous drugs prevention and control measures. Develop an educational program and information drive on the hazards and prevention of illegal use of any dangerous drug and/or controlled precursor and essential chemical based on factual data. Article 10. Appropriations, Management of Funds and Annual Report. Section 89. Auditing the accounts and expenses of the Board and the PDEA. All accounts and expenses of Board and the PDEA shall be audited by the COA or its duly authorized. Section 82. Creation of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. To carry out the provisions of this Act, the PDEA, which serves as the implementing arm of the Board, and shall be responsible for the efficient and effective law enforcement of all the provisions on any dangerous drug and or controlled precursor and essential chemical as provided in this Act. Section 83. Organization of the PDEA. The present Secretariat of the National Drug Law Enforcement and Prevention Coordinating Center, as created by the Executive Order No. 61, shall be accordingly modified and absorbed by the PDEA. Article 11. Jurisdiction over dangerous drugs cases. Section 90. Jurisdiction. The Supreme Court shall designate special courts from among the existing regional trial courts in each judicial region to exclusively try and hear cases involving violations of this Act. Section 92. Delay and bungling in the prosecution of drug cases. Any government officer or employee tasked with the prosecution of drug-related cases under this Act who, through patent laxity, inexcusable neglect, unreasonable delay or deliberately causes the unsuccessful prosecution and or dismissal of the said drug cases shall suffer the penalty of imprisonment ranging from 12 years and 1 day to 20 years without prejudice to his or her prosecution under the pertinent provisions of the revised penal code. Article 12. Implementing Rules and Regulations. Section 94. Implementing Rules and Regulations. The present board, in consultation with the DOH, DILG, DOG, DepEd, DSWD, DOLE, PNP, NBI, PAGCOR, and the PCSO, and all other concerned government agencies shall promulgate within 60 days the implementing rules and regulations that shall be necessary to implement the provisions of this Act. Article 13. Final Provisions. Section 97. Adoption of Committee Rules and Regulations and Funding. The Oversight Committee on Dangerous Drugs shall adopt its internal rules of procedure, conduct hearings, and receive testimonies. Section 99. Separability Clause. If for any reason, any section or provision of this Act or any portion thereof, or the application of such section, provision or portion thereof to any person, group, or circumstance is declared invalid or unconstitutional, the remainder of this Act shall not be affected by such declaration and shall remain in force and effect. Section 100. Repealing Clause. Republic Act No. 6425 as amended is hereby repealed, and all other laws, administrative orders, rules, and regulations, or parts thereof inconsistent with the provisions of this Act are hereby repealed or modified accordingly. Section 101. Amending Clause. Republic Act No. 7659 is hereby amended accordingly. Section 102. Effectivity. This Act shall take effect 15 days upon its publication in at least 2 national newspapers of general circulation. Drug is a chemical substance used in the treatment, cure, prevention, or diagnosis of disease, or used to otherwise enhance physical or mental well-being. Drugs affect the way your body and mind function. They can change how you feel, think, and behave. People take drugs for different reasons and in different ways. Swallowing tablets or drinking liquids, breathing them into the lungs, snorting into the nose, injecting. The user injects the drug directly into the bloodstream or through the skin. The body slowly absorbs the drug from a cream or patch, rectally or vaginally as a suppository. The body absorbs the drug through the bowel or vaginal lining.
When are drugs harmful? Harmful effects can relate to a single occasion of drug use, such as overdose or an injury resulting from intoxication, or from longer-term chronic use associated with dependence, such as health problems in a range of social, legal, financial, and emotional problems.
Why do people turn to drugs? Drugs excite the parts of the brain that makes you feel good, but after you take a drug for a while, the feel good parts of your brain get used to it. Then you need to take more of the drugs to get some good feelings. Soon, your brain and body must have the drug just to feel normal. You feel sick, awful, anxious, and irritable without the drug. You no longer have the good feelings that you had when you first used the drug. This is true. If you feel use illegal drugs or if you misuse prescription drugs, misuse includes taking a drug differently than how your doctor tells you to, taking more or crushes pills to shut up or snort, taking someone else's prescription or taking it just to get high.
Drug abuse begins with our own behaviors, which leads to addiction as a result of excessive use. People take drugs to deal with a variety of issues in their lives, including physical and emotional issues. Teenagers are the majority of those who become addicted to illegal drugs. They use drugs to temporarily escape reality and they continue to use them until they get hooked to them. There are also others who use illegal drugs for the sheer pleasure of it. It makes people feel wonderful, which is why they continue to use it. Drug misuse can alter your emotions, actions, and behavior. It has the potential to make our lives miserable and deteriorate our health.
Sample pictures of drugs not being abused.
Alcohol and illegal drugs are the two most widely abused types of substances. Too much alcohol consumption can lead to diseases and other health issues such as high blood pressure, heart disease, liver disease, and digestive issues. When we consume too much alcohol in our bodies, it might lead to addiction. Illegal drugs, on the other hand, have the most devastating effects on our bodies. Excessive use of a drug can result in addiction. It's comparable to alcohol in that it can be harmful to your health. It has the potential to cause cancer, mental disorder, infections, and other problems.
What is a drug abuser? Drug abusers feel that the drug is a part of their daily life. Drug dependence is a disease that gradually increases. This disease is not cured but can only be controlled. Addiction is a process of use, misuse, and abuse. A drug abuser increases his/her drug use in multiples of 2 over time. How can you tell when one is abusing drugs? Here's the example. Eyes that are often red, bloodshot, or glassy, unusually widened or tiny pupils, sudden weight loss or weight gain, constantly runny or bloody nose, change in hygiene habits. What are the possible consequences of a person using illegal drugs? Here's an example. Changes in physical appearance, changes in behavior with family or friends, being chronically late or not showing up or for obligation or work or responsibilities, limit time spent on social or recreational activities due to substance use, acting out of character, lacks energy when participating in daily activities, becomes defensive when confronted about their drug or a substance use, argues beyond their control to use the drug or substance regularly, fails in attempt to stop using the drug substance, increases usage of the drug or substance to get the same effect of smaller dosages, maintains a supply of the drug or substance, spend money on the drugs or substance even if they can't afford it, continuous use of the drug or substance even after physical or psychological harm is apparent, experiences withdrawal symptoms when attempting to stop using the drug or substance.
10 ways to say no to drugs. No, I'm fine. I didn't want or need it. And I'm dealing with my problems the right way, no matter how difficult it is. No thanks, because I don't want to destroy my life. No thanks, because I will never dream to become an addict. No thanks, because I have a lot of dreams and I don't want to destroy my future. No thanks, I'm sorry, but I will never use that. No thanks, I will not drink that because I need to study. No thanks, because doing it is illegal and you can get to jail because of it. No, I'm saving my money to help my family. No thanks, I will not waste my time in that bad habit. No thanks, that stuff makes me sick. Those are the 10 ways to say no to drugs.